I'm sure you've heard the news. Adopting a pet can change your life. So when Emily saw Max, a beautiful black Labrador, at the shelter, she knew she had to take him home. Max was quiet and reserved, a stark contrast to the other boisterous dogs. Emily found his calm demeanor comforting. She felt an instant connection with him. Max's deep brown eyes held a certain sadness that tugged at her heartstrings. Emily signed the adoption papers that day, eager to give Max a loving home. Little did she know, a shadow had followed them home. Emily was quick to settle Max into his new life. She bought him toys, a plush bed, and the finest food she could afford. Max, however, remained indifferent. He showed no interest in playing fetch or going for walks. He didn't even wag his tail when Emily showered him with affection. The only time Max seemed remotely engaged was when he looked at Emily. His gaze was intense, unwavering, and unnervingly silent. It felt as if he was studying her, memorizing her every move. A knot of unease began to form in Emily's stomach, a feeling she quickly dismissed as the anxieties of a new pet owner. As days turned into weeks, Max's behavior remained unchanged. He was the epitome of stillness, a shadow that followed Emily from room to room. His silence, once perceived as calmness, became unnerving. He never barked, whined, or growled. The only sound he ever made was a soft, almost inaudible sigh that seemed to escape him in the dead of night. Emily found herself talking to fill the silence, narrating her day to Max, seeking a semblance of normalcy. But Max offered no response, only those piercing brown eyes that seemed to bore into her soul. The lack of reciprocal affection from Max began to weigh heavily on Emily. Her initial joy of adopting him was replaced by a creeping sense of unease. His constant presence, the unwavering gaze, it all felt suffocating. The once comforting silence of her home had transformed into an oppressive void, punctuated only by the sound of her own breathing and the echo of her own thoughts. Emily tried to rationalize Max's behavior, attributing it to his time at the shelter or perhaps a subdued personality, but deep down a primal fear began to take root. There was something profoundly unsettling about Max, something she couldn't quite place her finger on. Sleep offered no respite for Emily. Nightmares plagued her, vivid and terrifying. In these dreams, Max's usually brown eyes were replaced by black voids, bottomless pits that stared back at her with chilling intensity. His calm demeanor was replaced by a menacing aura. His teeth, normally hidden behind a gentle Labrador smile, were bared in a grotesque snarl, revealing a second row of razor-sharp fangs. Emily would wake up in a cold sweat, her heart pounding in her chest, the feeling of dread clinging to her like a shroud. She would look over at Max, who would be sitting at the foot of her bed, his dark eyes fixated on her. The line between dreams and reality began to blur. One particularly harrowing night, Emily woke from a nightmare to find 3 long, deep scratches on her bedroom wall, just inches from her bed. The scratches were too high for any normal animal to reach. Fear turned to terror. Emily examined the scratches, her fingers tracing the unnatural grooves in the wall. They were sharp, precise, and emanated a faint, sulphurous odor that made her stomach churn. That night, Emily slept with the lights on, her heart pounding in her chest. The image of Max's toothy grin from her nightmare seared into her mind. Desperate for a way out, Emily tried to give Max away. She contacted shelters, rescue organizations, even individual families, but to no avail. No one wanted a dog that never barked or played, a dog that just stared, and who could blame them? She couldn't bring herself to articulate the true extent of her fear, the chilling nightmares, the unexplainable scratches. The words caught in her throat, choking her with their unspoken terror. She felt trapped, imprisoned in her own home, her every move scrutinized by those unnerving eyes. Then the scratching returned. This time it wasn't just random marks on the wall. The scratches began to take shape, forming letters, crude and jagged, but undeniably clear. "Let me in!" the message screamed from the wall. It was a bone-chilling plea, a terrifying demand from an entity lurking just beyond her perception. Emily was living a nightmare, and the worst was yet to come.